Go ahead, hit. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm calling to order the Finance Committee meeting of Thursday, February 9th. Just a reminder, this meeting is being audio and video recorded, so please take care not to screen share anything you want to see on public record. May I have an approval of the agenda? Second, thank you. Roll call. Stephen. Joanne. Jill. Chris. Joe.
Aye.
Peter.
Aye.
Jeremy.
Aye.
Thank you. Denise, aye. Okay, I'm now going to open it for public comments. And I'm going to close it for public comments. Okay, we have the minutes from 17. Okay, yeah, I'm sure I read them. Does anybody have any changes to the minutes from January 17th?
No.
Okay, in which case, may I have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. Stephen?
Aye.
Joanna? Aye. Jill? Chris?
Aye.
Joe? Peter?
Aye.
Jeremy?
Aye.
Denise, aye. Thank you. Okay. All right, so the articles that we're considering tonight is
Someone on, is one of us up there?
Jeremy's online. That's why we're doing roll call.
One of us.
It's one of us. It just gets better and better at these meetings.
It's like that song. What is that?
One of them. Just a fool.
Okay, before we break into song, I'm going to turn it over to Brian.
Wow.
Brian, Article
Only
30.
thinking of you.
I probably just heard them on the way in or something like that.
The ones that wonder.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
Okay, people, calm down.
Sorry, sorry. I know Denise, you want to get through this in my life.
We're punchy today.
I see that. Brian, it's, you have to join us in the trailer.
It's way more fun.
At least today.
Chair waiting for you.
I was
Great.
actually thinking I should have come in person. You guys are having so much fun. I'm missing out.
We are.
We'll punch you for it.
Often, there's people in costume.
The whole group of whales here. I don't know why.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So Article 30 is the contribution to the OPEB trust fund, which we historically and annually have made since I think beginning in 2013. This year, town administration is recommending, consistent with prior years, the $500,000 be raised and appropriated from the tax levy and other general revenues of the town, and that transfer would be made in July after annual town, pending successful approval of the article after town meeting.
Thank you, Brian. Any questions for Brian?
Brian, what
Yeah.
is the current unfunded liability on the Nantucket's portion of the Barnstable plan?
So this is actually, this particular piece is the health insurance benefits post-employment, not the Barnstable. The town's unfunded liability with Barnstable County, I believe, is 88 million.
Okay, and there's an article further on about that, right?
There is an article further on about that, yes.
Okay.
And I was just curious, what are the basic assumptions on there to come up with the 88 million unfunded liability?
Basically, the way that Barnstable County does the retirement system unfunded liability is they get the actuarial data from Siegel Associates. We are the second largest participant in the Barnstable County retirement, so the entirety of the unfunded liability is then apportioned ratably by percentage of each member group in the Barnstable County regional retirement system.
And so that 88 million unfunded liability, over what period of time will the town amortize that to zero?
That will actually, the town's the unfunded liability will be fully funded by 2038 under the plan adopted and approved for regional retirement systems by the Commonwealth.
And we're doing just $500,000 this year? Is that how it works?
This has nothing to do with the retirement system unfunded liability. This is the unfunded liability we created a trust fund to start funding for the other post-employment benefits that are associated when somebody retires. This is strictly related to health insurance, which is solely on the town. This is so, and this unfunded liability is actually 110 million.
Right, so we have the retirement unfunded liability of 88, and then we have the medical unfunded
Yes.
liability of 111.
Yes.
And are we comfortable with the assumptions? As you know, there are many pension assumptions that are way out of whack with reality.
We are speaking specifically in Article 30 only. We are comfortable with the assumptions that are made for the unfunded health liability because we have selected our own advisor to do the actuarial analysis. So speaking to this one here, I am comfortable with the assumptions, yes.
Other questions?
Hey, Brian, who's the largest if we're second?
I'd have to look it up. I think it's actually Barnstable in one form or another participates, and I think it's them that's the largest. We have about 11% of the unfunded liability.
Bigger than I thought.
Close to $1 billion. Okay,
People just like to stay here and retire.
any other questions? Seeing none, may I have a motion?
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Any further discussion on the motion?
Any further discussion on the motion?
No,
Nope.
sorry.
Thank you, Peter.
I knew you didn't want to be rude, so I have that.
Okay, so motion to adopt is on the table and starting with Stephen. Joanna,
Aye.
Jill, Chris,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Jeremy,
Aye,
Denise, I thank you. Okay. All right, Brian, fiscal year 2023 senior work off program, please.
So historically, the town has funded a program which allows seniors to perform functions within administrative offices in the town that would not be considered normal union work. They can make up to, under the statute, it hasn't been adjusted. I think they make minimum wage for this job. And that money is then applied against their taxes. We have historically funded it with $25,000 from overlay surplus. The assessor has declared the $25,000 surplus, so which is the first step. And then we're asking for an affirmative vote to authorize the $25,000 for this program.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Question, Peter?
Brian, what's the reason that somebody would want to do this rather than just getting a job that pays way more than minimum wage?
Some seniors want the flexibility and just they're limited to, I think it's $1,000 under the statute. Some seniors enjoy it and that's what they would like to do and not do much else. It's a way to continue to interact with people and stay in touch with what's going on in the town.
But there's no additional benefit that we're not seeing here by
No,
participating. Okay,
no.
thank you.
They actually, all the money that's earned up to the cap is applied against their tax bill. So they're not getting any additional benefit other than the reduction in the tax bill.
Jeremy?
Brian, if that netting is how it works, why do you need cash moved over?
Because we have to physically write a check to them and then deposit it. So we have to charge it again. We have to charge it against an expense account.
So it's not really netted. It's we give them money up to a certain amount.
We give them money and then they turn the check over to us, or we do a direct, or most seniors have set up a direct deposit that just comes back to the town. But we have to have an expense account to charge it to. So that's what this allows us to charge the cost against an expense account.
And so do you get 25 seniors who max out at $1,000?
We don't get 25 annually, no, but this gives us the flexibility if in a year more people wanted to participate.
So how many people actually participated last year?
Last year, I think maybe 9 or 10 ultimately ended up participating. There are probably more people that may want to participate, but there's not always the availability within the departments within the town to take on everybody that sometimes would like to participate.
Other questions? May I have a motion? Okay, thank you. Any further discussions on the motion? Okay, Stephen?
Aye.
Joanna?
Aye.
Jill? Chris?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Jeremy?
Aye.
Denise, I thank you. Boom. Okay, Brian, 32.
So the airport created a special purpose stabilization fund for employee accrued liabilities. The employee accrued liabilities that relate to this fund are any sick leave, vacation leave that would potentially be paid out upon retirement or leaving termination of employment. They have historically contributed some money to this fund to begin building up to cover those accrued liabilities. This year, they are asking to take no action on the article.
So they're not making any contribution this
They're
year.
not, no, they will not be making a contribution this year.
Is it presently funded to some level?
It's presently funded to about 700,000, actually, I believe. Which is
When
where
are they
they're-
gonna ask to drain that to fund something else?
It can only be used to fund employee accrued liabilities. So if they had a large payout at a subsequent town meeting, they would ask to withdraw the money from the fund to replenish their budget for that payout during the year.
Other questions? Okay, may I have a motion?
Motion to take no action?
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? Stephen,
Aye.
Joanna. Aye. Jill.
Aye.
Chris.
Aye.
Joe.
Aye.
Peter.
Aye.
Jeremy.
Aye.
Denise, I thank you. Take action. Okey dokey. I'm guessing 33 is the same, Brian.
33 is the same. The town put in last year at town meeting 1.5 million, and at this point in time, we are comfortable with that number. We have not had to tap into it, and we think that that's a reasonable amount to be carrying forward right now.
And Brian, what is the amount in that account now?
1.5 million is in the account. We transferred that last year at the annual town meeting.
Other questions?
So moved.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
It's my job.
Stephen.
Can
Poor thing.
I have a quick question for Brian?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, Brian, is there any limit on how much accrued vacation or whatever other sort of benefits are used that represent this funding? Is there any limit to what people can build up over time working for the town?
Yes, and it varies depending on whether it's non-union staff have varying limits, and then also union staff have limits within their contracts. As an example, sick leave is the maximum that can be bought out is 50%, and you can accrue to, I think, 1,920 hours in some agreements. Some agreements have different numbers, but there are limits to what you can accrue and keep on the books. Vacation is slightly different. We try to people can carry over only a certain amount of leave, so it's not the full amount that they would actually be entitled to on a year-over-year basis. So
So
not-
it sort of caps out, I guess is what I'm hearing. So,
yes, it does.
okay.
But it's 1,920 hours. That's a full year's worth of work, isn't it?
Well, that's sick leave that some people do, and then when they're eligible for 50, they're only eligible for a 50% payout of that money. They're not eligible, and very few people at this point with the retirements that we've had, that number of people at the cap is substantially slowing down.
Thanks, Brian.
Any other
Okay.
questions? Okay. We did have a motion to not adopt, or motion take no action. Is that still our motion? Still seconded? Thank you. Stephen,
Aye.
Joanna,
Aye.
Jill,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Jeremy.
Aye.
Thank you. Denise, I. Okay. Ken, you're up.
Thank you. This is the first time we're having it come through the select board because it gave us a little bit extra time to be able to do it. What was really interesting this year is that for whatever reason, we thought we were going to have a lot more applications, and there are a limited number of applications. So we were able to basically grant the full amount of the applications. And it gave us the opportunity to go in and make two major additional contributions on the bonds that we have taken out. And so we made a fifth allocation for the funds to pay the interest and principal on the $5 million bond authorized in 2019. and a third allocation of the funds to pay the first year's interest and principal on a $5 million bond authorized in the 22 Nantucket Town Meeting to pay for the anticipated cost of acquiring the land. The other thing that was really interesting this year is that because of the amount of money that needs to go for the administration of the office, we had to make sure that the funds, that category, in fact, were all from the Community Preservation Fund surcharge, interest and state matching funds, and they were. So those are the two items that are sort of somewhat different this year from the proposals. Any questions with respect to it? The total amount that we have available to distribute was $4,211,756.
Questions for Ken?
Yeah.
Peter?
And what is our requirement in terms of a religious organization asking for money?
There's been case law that indicates that as long as the purpose is not for the religious purpose, there's no problem with respect to the allocation.
So if it's a religious building that religious things happen in, that doesn't count because it's the building that we're putting the money into.
The thing is that we're very careful because we've checked with the people up in Boston, and the fact that the allocations that we're making are in this particular instance, it was St. Paul's Church. It's with respect to the roof flashing and whatnot. It's clearly work with respect to the structural maintenance and restructure of the building as opposed to anything to do with the religious activity.
Chris?
Ken, what's the balance? Is this the total balance of the open space reserves, or were there reserves before this allocation this year?
No, the thing is that we have a fair amount of open space reserves because in fact that's very difficult for us to find projects to come forward to put the money in. And so what we have to do is, in this instance, because there were no applications whatsoever, we have to allocate 10% to the open space category, and it gets designated in that category in terms of only for having that use moving forward.
Yeah, no, I understand the 10% issue. Do you know what the balance of that reserve account is now?
I don't have that off the top.
Okay, that's fine. And it's listed as open space conservation recreation. Is it all open space recreation, or how broad is the definition of recreation?
What we've been able to do is we've gotten them to expand the definition somewhat. And so for instance, like the thing that we did last year with respect to the tennis courts out by the Hinsdale, in terms of that expansion, that was able to fit within to that recreation category. So there's been a little bit of expansion with respect to what is classically thought of as open space. But in fact, this year we've talked to people, but for whatever reason, they weren't able to get their act together and get the applications into us in time. So.
Okay, what is there someplace I would look to find the balance of that?
Is there what?
Do you know, is there a publicly available place to find the balance of the reserve accounts?
I don't know, but Brian.
Chris, we'll provide a copy to the committee. The reserve accounts, as I recall, don't have a lot of money in them at this point. The
No.
majority of the money is held in the reserve for bond account because they made a large deposit last year at town meeting, but we will provide the committee.
That's fine. It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal.
What we've done is we've kept the one account that we have kept a reasonable amount of money. I think there's about $1 million in it, is the general account, so that if something ever happened, we would still be able to, in fact, meet our obligations under the act.
Got it. Thank you.
Ken, to build on what Chris was asking about recreation, is that a tennis court is clearly out, well, it's not always outside, but this one is clearly outside. Will there ever be an opportunity where recreation is indoors, but it's recreation? Like
The problem that they've had with anything indoors is that there was a basic tenant early on that you couldn't sort of build a hockey arena or something like that. And so there's,
Okay.
it's very tough to do anything indoors with respect to recreation.
Okay, thank you. Jeremy, you had a question?
I did just, on the, where it says town of Nantucket repeating a few times and has 350,000. It
Yeah.
talks about in two separate cases, the 5 million bond to be authorized at the 2022 meeting. But didn't that already occur?
You know what, the thing was, those bonds were authorized, but we have to pay the interest and the carrying costs on them each year for up to 15 years. And so basically what each year we make the payment with respect to the carrying cost. And what we're able to do is in fact, make a double payment this year to in fact reduce the obligation out over time so that instead of it having to be paid out over 15 years, might only have to be paid out over 12 and a half or 13 years.
I got that part. I was just looking at the language. And it maybe it just needs to be changed in the future, but it says, if we look above, we talk about how the 2019 was authorized, but we talk about the next two bonds were to be authorized. And I was just curious if in fact they actually got authorized.
They were authorized. That's probably sloppy language on my part.
Anything else?
Yeah.
Stephen?
Can you update us on what is the net benefit to the town? You know, the money that comes back from the state, from these CPA funds?
Well, you know, it's actually really quite extraordinary. This past year, we got back over $1 million from the state because of the fact that we have the CPC allocation.
So how does that compare
It's
to?
a function of the amount of money that we allocate. Last couple of years, we've gotten a fair amount. The year before, I think it was 650,000. The year before that, it was in the same area. So we're getting a significant amount of money back from the state that is in fact able to be used within our community.
Okay, that does sound like a significant amount of money, but I remember, Chris, I think this was an issue you raised last year or a couple of years ago, every year. And the trend was on a percentage basis was downward consistently.
Well, what's happened is that everybody has woken up to the fact that the CPA Act is in fact something really good for the communities. So a lot of communities that were asleep at the switch weren't involved. And so what's happening is that everybody's getting involved. So you have a greater number of communities, a larger pool of money that has to be allocated out. So the end result is that we get a smaller percentage of it, but still get a significantly good contribution back to the community.
Right, so not just a smaller percentage of the overall pie, but the return on our investment, so to speak, was decreasing. Is that still true?
I don't think that that's the case, but I haven't double checked that number.
It may have leveled off because I think everybody's in now.
Is everybody in, Ken?
There's probably maybe 70 to 75% of the communities are in now. You still have a fair number of communities that I can't believe aren't involved in this. But unfortunately for us, finally Boston woke up, and one of the other major cities woke up and are now in, which has actually a very significant effect on the amount of money that is available to come back to us.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Brian, go ahead.
Thank you for 1 second. Let me pull this up. I think to answer Stephen's question, so in 21, we received 745,000 from the state back for the distribution from the trust fund. In 22, we received just under 1.2 million, and this we received 1,197,000, which I believe was made up of the initial distribution and then a supplemental distribution at a later date, dependent on the receipts into the fund. And this year to date in fiscal 23, we have received, what's this number? Sorry about that. 1,110,000 already.
So it's not really diluting.
It's because there was a change, I believe, Ken, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that Governor Baker's administration added a fee on property transfers through the registry that increased the money going into CPA. So that communities wouldn't face dilution as more communities came into it. So we have seen an upward trend since those changes were implemented.
And that's as a result of the lobbying act by the organization in Boston with respect to, because the governor added an additional $20 million to the pool this year.
Other questions for Ken? Joe?
Curious of Ken and or Brian, the use of $800,000 in undesignated reserves. I mean, that strikes me as sort of digging into your savings account, and yet, you know, Ken talked about having so much money that we were able to make an extra payment on the outstanding bonds. I'm not sure I understand that, you know.
Well, the fact is, I have to have sources for the funding, and so the biggest source is the money that goes into the undesignated reserves. So what I do is I pull out the money from the designated reserves with respect to each of the three categories. And when we're doing the rest of the distribution, which in fact makes sense from the point of view in terms of what you're investing in, you're taking it away from the reserves that you have. That's the pool of money that you have to be able to make sure you can make the payment. And what I've said before is that we keep somewhere over $1 million that is not touched. It's undesignated reserve. We don't go anywhere near that in terms of the amount of money that we choose to allocate out.
But the reserve got to the point where you felt you could use 800,000 and still leave $1 million behind, so to speak?
If there's more than $1 million left behind.
Okay.
How much? How much more than $1 million?
I don't have that number.
There is 1.1 million left behind.
Yeah.
After the 800,000.
Okay.
Jeremy?
So, if every year the town is gonna spend $4.2 million on community preservation work, we're anticipating what, about $1.25 million to come from the state of Massachusetts every year, Brian, in this,
Maria,
from
can you scroll this
program?
down a little so I can see the article again, just to be able to read? No, keep going.
Yeah, okay.
And there's no commitment that we're going
No,
to spend
keep,
$4 million. What we're doing
right.
is, what we're going to be spending is what is available for us to take a look at what's there based on what we've received from the state, based on what we have in reserves. And then we make a determination as to what is the appropriate amount to allocate out. Because the fact is that there's not a commitment with respect to a significant number. It starts with what we receive and then a function of what we get from the state, which are the two basic sources of funding. Then there's the amount of interest that we earn on the money that we have. And then there is any designated reserves that were set aside that can be used. So those are the 3 or 4 sources of money. And depending on what they are, is what the amount is that we have available for distribution. So there's no guarantee that it's going to be 4 million or any other number.
Jeremy,
Yeah.
Jeremy, did you have another question? Your hand was raised, that's why I'm asking.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't lower the hand.
Okay, just checking. Ken, I don't see any investment in affordable housing this year.
We didn't get anything from them. What we got, what we have in affordable housing is
No, you don't have anything.
community
Other
housing.
than-
No, just
other-
the interfaith council.
The
We did-
Interfaith Council.
Yeah, but not
Yeah, and
the,
what we did was we made, the other things that we made is we made 4 payments on the bonds.
okay.
Say, Ken,
Yeah.
I know that in the past, the CPC has allocated some funds to the Affordable Housing Trust that then get distributed to the various agencies that use it. Does the Affordable Housing Trust formally request from the CPC an allocation, or is that?
Yes, they do. And in terms of the discussions with Tucker, they felt that was not something that they were prepared to fully request this year. And so we work with them, and what basically the arrangement is that the Affordable Housing Trust Fund makes the application on behalf of the other organizations that it subfunds.
Okay, thank you.
I don't understand why that's not an appropriate source of funds.
It is.
I don't understand why the Affordable Housing Trust didn't make an application.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It seems like, it's an available, it's an available source of funding.
I guess they have all they need.
Where it should come.
Don't they need more money for Tacoma Green?
No, we're about to give them.
No, they need lots of them. Yeah.
No, I know, I'm just
Yeah,
saying,
it's good.
example.
So when we
That's
discuss,
fine.
when we discuss that article, that'll be an appropriate question to ask why they didn't apply for the CPC funds.
I'd like after town meeting cycle to revisit the issue that Chris, you brought up a couple of years ago, is this mechanism the best way to serve the various needs of the community? We're getting back $1 million, but we're spending 15% of that just on administrative overhead for what we do with this money. And then we have certain uses that we have to allocate money for. And we don't have applications for some of those uses. So the money just sits there. And then we spend, $850,000 for this church and $150,000 for some other well-funded private nonprofit. And the town has lots of its own needs. I'm not sure this is, the best way to go. The same economic impact on taxpayers could be, we raise taxes across the board at the same level that we have this extra CPA surcharge on people's tax bills, and we could use the money, in my opinion, better.
You're gonna have the CPA surcharge for at least the next 15, 16, 17 years for how long out the obligations are with respect to the bonds.
Okay, but that's not all of the, that's not all you're using the money for.
What you're saying is it's costing us more than we're getting with administrative costs alone.
I think we would, if this went away tomorrow, I think we would choose to use this sum of money differently.
Yes, we're chewing on.
What are the administrative costs? Like, who does that cover?
Question. What are the administrative costs?
Cover staff.
That's Ken.
Ken, what are the
The
administrative?
staff, it covers the cost of staff and the rent for the office, obviously.
I didn't hear.
Does it cover kids' salaries?
Staff and rent for the office, did you say?
Yes, he did.
Yep.
Okay, there's no need
It's
for an
up a
alternate.
little bit.
Where are we renting?
Yeah.
What is the office for CPC and what are we paying rent?
Just did a new lease. I don't remember the amount. It's a small space out near the airport. And we got a better deal than we had with what we were paying for the Coffin School.
And who sits in that office? Is it just you, Ken? I'm just curious as to who is the CPC? It's you, right?
There are two staff people that work
Okay.
for the CPC in the office
Okay.
space.
Denise, can I ask?
None of the members of on the CPC get compensated in any manner, shape, or form.
Thank you. Jeremy?
Yeah, let me just keep going on this because if you look at it from what numbers I see, we got 4.2 million that gets deployed this year. Probably half of it goes to either the Episcopal Church's steeple or bond interest. And we pay $180,000 on the other 2 million, which is what, 9–10% goes to administration. And we say we don't get very many applications. It seems to me that the bond interest and all of that can be done for a heck of a lot cheaper. And it seems to me that we should have a marketing plan. If we're not getting applications and we're spending $180,000 to get just a few things that we do every year, what are we spending the money on?
This is the first year that, in fact, that we didn't have. We normally have applications that are 6, 7, 8, 9 times the amount of money that we have available for allocation. And for whatever reason, with respect to what happened during the course of the last year, we just did not get that many applications or that amount of money. But if I go back over the last 15 or 16 years, we have historically had applications that are anywhere from 4 to 8, 9 times the amount of money we have available in terms of the requests for grants.
So what happened this year? I mean, we must have known halfway through the year that there was a dramatic change.
Well, for whatever reason, the people didn't get around to, in fact, we thought we were going to have, in fact, double or triple the amount of applications. And when we talked to a number, they said time just got away from them. They didn't get a chance to prepare all the information because there's a significant amount of information that we request with respect to their applications for funding.
So does that mean that we should be re-looking at our entire funnel process to see if maybe the process is dissuading people from trying to get into this program?
Well, it hasn't done that before, and I just don't know the answer to your question, because we had spoken to a lot of people. They were working on the stuff, and they just never got it done in time to get it filed by the date that it had to be filed for us to consider it.
They couldn't need it that badly then.
Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, that's the issue, is what would those projects be, and those, or is that a better allocation of town funds and some of the other things? I think the other approach, Steve, is that it made sense when it was 80, if you just put 80% of this towards affordable housing and then did a deduct on the other monies we put towards affordable housing, then this kind of hangs together.
Right.
But when you don't have the big affordable housing chunk, you wonder, I mean, I think in the beginning, years ago, right, the state component here was the majority of the money, I believe, historically. So it seemed like found money, and we could use this found money in ways that were nice to haves, but not need to haves. Now it's not found money. It's mostly coming out of the pockets of the taxpayers, paying for nice to haves when we're having a hard time coming up with how to pay for need to have. So maybe you're right, Steve. Maybe it's after town meeting is the right time to have that conversation. But I think that's the bigger issue.
Madam Chair, can I make one comment?
Yeah, go ahead, Brian.
So with respect to the bonds, I think everybody has to keep in mind that the 350,000 is a principal and interest payment. It's not only interest, okay? A. B, the CPC is setting aside this money because when we issue the bands, okay, for any of the projects that were authorized, well, for the borrowing, for any projects that are fit within the scope of the borrowing, when the ban comes due with the reserve there, we pay that ban off so that it's not then permanently borrowed at a later date. Or we use all the money if the entirety of the ban, if the 5 million has been issued in bans, to pay the ban down and only permanently borrow the rest. So I'm not entirely sure what the suggestion would be on how to issue the debt differently, because we work very closely with our financial advisors to create structures that balance the needs of our borrowing and the balance of the needs of the way the CPC can pay. And this was done. This was the way this was created in a way to give the CPC flexibility. And given the fact that they had fewer applications this year, the CPC decided to allocate more money to it so that they would this year a second payment, so that when we ultimately do pay down those bonds, we're actually permanently borrowing less amount for a lesser amount of time. So I don't think that this was done in a way that doesn't make sense when we lay everything out on the table and how it was being done.
Yeah, I think, Brian, I think there isn't a question, at least from my side, about the paying down on the bonds. That's not the issue. The issue is more if we take a look at the St. Paul's Church, Hospital, Thrift Store, Egan Maritime, and the other projects that were the only ones in the barrel, therefore they got funded. And with all the needs on island, just because they got the applications in, were they the most worthy projects? I think that's the question that comes to mind. Now, obviously, we don't sit on the CPC committee, none of us, in which case, we do respect the work that the committee does and how they go about it. Of course, we do. That's appropriate. And it also, though, too, raises, I think, a very fair question of if this is a trend versus a one-of, is there a better way to maybe do this? To Chris's point, to Stephen's point, is there potentially an adaptation in the future that might be able to put money where it's more needed than less needed? So,
but you have to understand that the statute provides that we have to provide the monies applicants in the 3 different areas, and the scope of what is allowable in those areas is defined by the statute. So.
Yeah, Understood.
Yeah, the
That's
idea is.
understood, Ken. There's no question it would
That's,
still be
that's,
within the
that's the
rules.
problem.
Yeah.
I think, we don't have the flexibility that we might otherwise have. I mean, that's what I'm saying.
And make sure, I understand your concern is, we take, in this case, what, $2.4 million of tax of the sort of surcharge that's on taxes paid by property owners. That's in effect could be revenue that would be allocated differently by other organizations of the town in order to get $1.2 million from the state, this trust fund.
Right, the same property tax bill plus surcharge, if we raise taxes by that amount. And that money went into the general fund and we allocated it through the processes that we use. Otherwise, I don't think we would fund these same applications.
Interesting.
What is the most appropriate way to take a good look at all of this, down the road?
I do not know that. I think that's something I would discuss offline with Libby and Brian, Jeremy, and then come back to the committee with an answer under other business at a future meeting.
Who's the
Okay.
chairman? of this?
Ken,
Ken is the chairman.
Yeah.
I mean, this is in some ways not unlike what the CRC does,
correct,
except we don't have an office or 2 administrative
Don't have
assistants.
staff.
correct.
Yeah.
You have a portion of Ann,
Right.
right? Yeah, it's part of Ann's job,
Right.
right?
And what do you need the staff for?
Okay.
Really, I think.
Well, and then we have flexibility every year to say how much money we give the CRC and whether the town thinks that's a good idea of how to spend that money.
Mhm. Mhm.
Or we could come up with our own rules about what percentage of. I don't know, what sum of money is gonna go to this or that, not be bound by the statute.
Libby's got her hand up.
Libby?
I was just gonna say, maybe you could designate 1 or 2 of you to meet with the CPC after town meeting and lay out the concerns and have a interactive discussion with them about how they do all this and thoughts that you all might have about improvement and stuff like that. We've had this CPC in place now for quite a while, and it probably isn't a bad idea to sort of re-review how the funds are spent, what are the areas where it's spent the most on, who are the most applications from, and kind of re-review their outreach plan.
Thank you, Libby. Jeremy and Chris, did you volunteer to do that?
I was gonna say that.
Steven's the one that brought this
Yeah.
thing up today.
I got the receipts, you brought it up in 2017.
And just by way of background, over the, I guess it's close to 20 years, about a little bit, almost a third has gone to each of the categories over that period of time in different tranches at different times in terms of where the needs were within.
Thank you, Ken. So on a serious note, Jeremy, are you volunteering?
I certainly be delighted to, Denise.
Thank you. Chris
But
and or
I
Stephen?
have to do it later in the spring, so I can be
Oh,
there.
yeah,
in
it's
person.
after town meeting, so it won't be till June.
That's
Chris
perfect.
and I'll flip a coin offline.
Okay,
One of
all
us.
right, so there'll be, Jeremy, you'll have a colleague once they flip the coin off of him. But Libby's been quite good at coin flips this year with the 4-member select board when she's had to, so maybe we'll have Libby flip the
Right.
coin for you. Okay,
Hilarious, Denise.
I have my moments, Libby.
It's a feisty group.
I knew this was gonna be the one tonight. I knew it. I knew it.
Okay,
Motion to adopt.
thank you.
Second.
Any further discussion on the motion? Nope. Okay, Stephen,
Aye.
Joanna. Hi. Jill, Chris,
Aye.
Joe, Peter,
Aye.
Jeremy,
Aye.
Denise, I thank you. Thank you, Ken.
All right, I'm going to leave the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, bye. Okay, 71, Brian. Please.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. So 71, would request to make a change for what has typically been known as the sewer housing down by the sewer treatment plant in the revolving fund. We actually, Libby, you'll have to help me because I don't think that I actually did this one, but I think we're attempting to change it to sewer and public works housing. Is that correct?
Yeah,
That's
so
correct.
what's happened here is it's said public works housing for quite a while, but it's actually sewer housing now. At the time when the treatment plant was built and the housing was built as part of the project 20-something years ago, we didn't have a separate sewer department, and we're just needing to clarify that it is both agencies. And we're also adding that the rental payments from the concessions will have their own revolving fund to help defray maintenance and upkeep of those facilities.
Okay. I hope you're not gonna build an awning with them, Libby, that's all I gotta say.
No, we're not. Hope not.
Okay, I'm a riot tonight. I'm on fire.
What else are they gonna
This is just a-
use the money for?
This is just a small detail, but shouldn't it say sewer and public works staff housing and not housing?
We house our sewers.
No, let's not change it. It's
Yeah.
Brian, do we know what the funding level for these two revolving funds will be?
Sewer and I can look and see what it was last year, Joe, for the housing, if you would like. I think it's about 100,000 is what we have allocated, if memory serves me correctly, but let me give you a definitive answer. And then the concession is a new one, and the town manager and I are in discussions about how much of the revenue from the concessions to put into it in the first year, given the fact that that's all gone into the general fund. My recommendation probably is going to be 50% of the total revenue received, so that we can smooth it out over a year or two rather than take it all at once.
Okay, and that's gonna cover what, the Surfside, the Sandbar, the Children's Beach?
Yes.
Okay,
That's
got
correct.
it.
Yes, that is correct. It would cover all three of those.
Jeremy?
Brian, I just was wondering how many people are housed in this public works housing?
Oh,
I think there are 8 or 10.
And just,
It's a mix of single apartments and more family sized.
Libby, how much total housing, not just for the sewer and public works, is there for town employees?
Well, we have much more seasonal housing than we do year-round. The year-round housing for town employees is here, and it's specific to sewer and public works. There's limited year-round housing at the Loran Barracks facility on Low Beach Road. And the town owns a house at 38 Westchester Street that is currently licensed to the fire chief. We are renting a number of units around the island for employees such as travel nurses, and there are some union employees, I believe, in a couple of them, but they're mostly rental at this point for year-round employees.
So the town owns one, rents a few, has the seasonal out by the Coast Guard station, and then we have 10 people for the public works, and that's it?
Roughly, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Joe, to answer your question, last year we authorized 75,000.
Or that was, which one? That was the housing one, Brian?
Yes, for the sewer, what was known as public works last year, but yes, it's 75,000.
Thanks.
We
You're
could
welcome.
send you, we're working on, as part of the $1 million rental housing offset fund, we developed a housing inventory. We can send you, without naming names, a complete inventory. Well, I can get that out to you guys.
Oh, that'd be super.
Other questions? Can you live without the housing staff? Okay, thank you. Okay, may I have a motion, please?
Motion to adopt.
Okay, thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Stephen,
Aye.
Joanna.
Aye.
Jill.
Aye.
Chris.
Aye.
Joe.
Hi,
Peter.
Aye.
Jeremy.
Aye.
Denise, I thank you. All right, Brian, 89, please.
Thank you. So, Madam Chair, what you have before you is the home rule petition that was presented, I believe it was 2 years ago, to town meeting. This is the first step in a very long and arduous process that will take a very long time, and we are not anywhere near ready to begin. But the first step in this process would be to request a home rule petition to ask the general court to allow us to issue pension obligation bonds and notes. With the size of the unfunded liability, we were approached by Hilltop 2 years ago with a proposal that if we were to issue pension obligation bonds, the net savings from the debt that issue would have been approaching approximately $35 to $40 million over the long term remaining. Given the way that interest rates are now, it's not really something that we're actively would be pursuing at this time. However, in order to consider it, we need the legislation because communities in the Commonwealth are not statutorily authorized to issue pension obligation bonds and have to seek home rule petitions. There's many steps after this. We would actually have to get town meetings approval to issue the debt. We have to appear before the administration of finance within the Commonwealth. We would have to have a separate independent actuarial analysis done of our actual unfunded liability. But in order to even begin to consider it, we need to have the legislation that would allow us to do it. So this is just reauthorizing the select board to submit the home rule petition to the general court for consideration.
Thank you, Brian. Questions for Brian? Jeremy?
Brian, why would Nantucket issue a unfunded pension liability bond as opposed to just issuing debt? What is the benefit?
We cannot issue debt for pension obligations. It has to be a pension obligation bond. So that's why we need the general court's permission. And so.
And what is the issue that the court of Massachusetts has to resolve to give us that permission?
Well, the general court is the legislature in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So the legislature has to give us the authority to do this, which is why we would file the home rule petition.
And this is the medical of 111 and the unfunded of 88?
It is only the pension unfunded liability itself.
And so the point would be to basically defease that liability as opposed to paying every year the amount that we're supposed to pay.
It would be to reduce the amount from roughly 8 million, 7.5 million across the entire organization that we pay down to a lower number which would generate savings that could be then potentially put to the OPEB health insurance liability to fund that on a faster basis.
Any other questions? And just a reminder, as Brian said, this was actually approved at the town meeting 2021. And because it wasn't acted on by the legislature, we
Right,
have to
it's a
resubmission.
Just like a bunch of the other things we've done.
So it's basically refreshing your
It
screen
keeps coming back.
Yeah.
Until somebody says
until
yes.
somebody gets it done. Exactly. Other questions or comments? In which case may I have a motion?
Motion to accept.
Thank
So,
you.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions about the motion?
No.
Seeing none. Stephen,
Aye.
Joanna,
Aye.
Jill,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Jeremy,
Aye.
Denise, I thank you. 89, please, Brian.
That was 89.
Oh, 89, sorry. I'm just, good. See, Maria always is one step ahead of me. I like that. 92, please, Brian.
I think I need to have the town manager walk you through this one, to be honest with you.
Okay,
Well,
Libby?
this is basically authorizing the board to enter into a long-term lease with a contractor for landfill operations, solid waste operations. Our current contract expires in 2025, and we're going to need the authority to enter into a long-term agreement.
Okay, thank you. Libby, when does, or Joe would know this being on the committee as well. When do you believe the new contract will be signed? In 2024 or this year?
Oh no, we haven't even issued an RFP yet. We have a
So-
number of things that have to be resolved before we can even issue the RFP, and there are a lot of things that are sort of moving targets, like
Mhm.
technology and other DEP regulations and requirements, uncertainty with respect to disposal sites off island, costs, types of materials that may or may not be accepted at certain places. So we're working through all of those things now. I would hope we'd be able to issue an RFP. I think we've talked about issuing one in early 2024
Okay,
and hope to have a contract in place well ahead of the 2025 contract expiration.
okay, thank you.
Libby, are there a lot of companies out there looking to have contracts like that with us?
I would say no. It's a
So are
huge
we not
commitment.
cutting it close a year out? Not having a contract yet?
Well, we have to do, I don't think so. Because worst case scenario, I think we suppose that the current operator may well be a bidder. And it may well be a bidder who makes some amount of sense, given that they've made a lot of investments into the current operation and they have the employees in place and a lot of the equipment and the knowledge. But there's still a little bit of research to be done as to breaking up the contract into things like, should someone else run the transfer station? Should someone else run the MRF? Should someone else run the composter? I don't, some of it makes sense, some of it might not. But those are all things that our solid waste consultant and our long-term solid waste work group is looking at. But I think we're on track with this, provided no, crazy unexpected things pop up, which they won't, but. you
So
never
there's
know.
no fear that we're gonna get caught with our pants down on something like this?
Oh, I think I have that fear on just about everything we do.
Just
Gotcha.
to follow up to that, Peter, the town actually did put out a request for expression of interest about 12 months ago. And there were 4 firms, including the current operator, that responded to the way that we had structured that, expressing interest when the time came to put that out. So do we think there's going to be a large number of firms? No, but there were definitely some very large operators that did express an interest to participate when the time came.
Didn't we buy some of the equipment?
No,
Last
we're
year.
considering, we have to consider buying some of the equipment, the composter and the
Transfer station.
And the
Transfer
C&D,
station.
the transfer station, the C&D building, right, is what they built.
yeah, C&D building are both assets that belong to Waste Options.
Okay, so did we authorize money to buy them last year? Is that what we did? What did we do?
No.
I thought
We haven't authorized any money for the purchase of anything that's
Mhm.
contemplated in the current agreement.
Oh.
But we do have a number of capital items for
Yes.
certain maintenance and repair types of things there was the MRF roof. And there's some other, I don't have it right in front of me. I don't know if Sue or you.
Is that isn't there a bagger or something that they?
Yes,
was on the-
there's a bag breaker, there's a new catwalk, there is renovations to the some of the facilities, the bathrooms, and we also authorize money for work on the take it or leave it, some take it or leave it structures there, so.
Okay. Anything else? Any other comments or questions?
Motion
Okay.
To adopt.
Thank you.
Second.
Any further discussion on the motion?
No.
Okay, thank you. Stephen?
Aye.
Joanna?
Aye.
Jill? Chris?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Jeremy?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Libby and Brian. And 104, stabilization fund, please, Brian.
At this point, we've made the recommendation to the town manager that this year we withhold. Last year, we did put 1,250,000, which brought this up over almost 6 million. So this year we're asking to take no action.
Okay. Any questions?
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Motion to take no action.
Yeah, to adopt that motion.
With emotion.
Okay,
Second.
okay, thank you. Stephen?
Aye.
Joanna?
Aye.
Jill?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Jeremy?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion to take no action. Okay,
Um,
and free cash.
At this time, Madam Chair, we don't envision a necessity to allocate free cash through this article. We believe that any necessary allocations could be handled through the various transfers or direct allocations in the warrant. So we ask for to take no action.
Okay. Any questions for Brian?
Does that mean that we don't anticipate there being a significant amount of free cash, or what's the reason?
Typically, we've had this article in case something came up and we couldn't find, there was no other way to allocate it, but given the severe backlog with DOR, we're still working with them to finalize it. However, we do expect to have a significantly large sum of free cash like last year. But any allocations would be contemplated through either the transfer articles, if it was necessary for fiscal 23, and or the appropriation articles in general in the budget, or in general fund article, and or capital in either enterprise fund for solid waste, and or the Article 10 for the general fund.
Thank you.
Is the
Any other questions? Okay,
Can I make a suggestion?
sure.
Can we delay voting on this? Because I think that there could be a pending request that could fit in this category. Just by a couple of meetings.
Okay. Brian, Libby, that's really up to you. Obviously, it's in relation to a certain committee that Joanna sits on. So,
Well, it's up to us if we vote tonight.
yeah, that's what, but they also wanted us to vote on it tonight, Brian and Libby, Chris.
It was important, it was important to them that we do this.
Tonight.
So could I ask a
That's
question? Could I ask a question about that, what
Yes.
Joanna brought up, Madam Chair?
Yeah,
Is that a request,
Okay.
an additional request for something within what is normally funded in Article 9?
yes.
Which
Yes.
is this, okay, so then we would not need Article 105 since the motion for Article 9 is not been drafted yet because CRC is not done. If there was additional funding from free cash, we would be able to accommodate it within that motion.
Okay, thank you, Brian.
Yeah.
Since we're not directly
Problem
talking about it yet.
Yeah, exactly. Subtle, we're very subtle here. Subtle group. Okay, any further discussion on 105? No.
Motion to take no action.
Okay, thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Stephen,
Aye.
Joanna,
Aye.
Jill.
Aye.
Chris.
Aye.
Joe.
Aye.
Peter.
Aye.
Jeremy.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Denise, I. All right, our next meeting is Monday, February 13th at 4 o'clock. It is here. It will be all the real estate articles and committee reports. So anybody have a committee report you want to update us on?
I attended what is it called? A wind committee?
Wind advisory.
Wind
Group.
advisory?
WAG.
WAG. Okay,
I don't know if that's what it's called, but I just named it that.
sure, okay. So I
WAG, I think, right.
attended an information session, the first of, I think, 3 presentations that South Coast Wind made yesterday. Nothing specific to report other than this is a long process with many unanswered questions and potential significant impacts to the town, which the South Coast Wind has just begun to identify, and then I guess they need to address them somehow, but none of that work's really been done meaningfully.
So we're not gonna enter an agreement with them anytime soon.
No, I
Or
wouldn't think so.
negotiate an
there-
agreement with them, I should say.
So I don't know all of the acronyms and the numbers of the reports. There's a section 105 report where they make, I think that's what it is, 106, thank you. Joanna came to the meeting with like 800 pages of printed documents, so
Good.
she's the subject matter expert here. I was just representing us. It was my first meeting. So they have the South Coast Wind has identified that there will be a negative economic impact on the community on Nantucket. Specifically, I think they said the heritage tourism industry. And they've offered to do a survey of our historic buildings as compensation.
What is
That's
the
about
Heritage
50 grand.
Tourism Agency?
Does that include St. Paul?
Our economy.
Yeah, really. I'm sorry, what is it?
Our economy.
how is the economy could be negatively impacted?
He said $800 million last night on the
People
select
don't
board.
want to come here because of the turbines, because you'll.
It's
because you might see the
industrializing.
turbines.
Well, they
The
did do it, so so the way that this worked is they did a study that showed that 85% of the people would still come, but 15% of the people would not come more than once over 30 years. So if you're a person who comes to Nantucket every summer, you wouldn't come anymore. You would come once and take a trip out to the turbines to see them as a tourist activity. And that the loss to the rest of the cultural district downtown, I mean, I question that myself, but whatever. Would be that the calculated amount over 30 years is $825 million.
Right, and those were references to studies in Block Island in New Jersey, so there's no
Real comparison.
new study that's been done, no survey of actual visitors to Nantucket.
Aren't all the people against the wind farm the same people who want fewer people to come here?
No.
I don't have the list
That
to
group is not
compare,
the group
so I
that's
don't know,
challenging
but
that.
we,
It's not.
And the Block Island study is on like 6 windmills done by a graduate.
and they're
student.
all within like 1 mile of shore, and the idea was that you could get on a little boat for $30 and go visit the wind farm and see, here we're 23 miles south of. It's not easily
Maybe a
reached.
day trip.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's not, we're not comparing apples to oranges.
No. But I'm
Did they
surprised
say where people are going to go instead of Nantucket?
no,
We're
no.
going to go to
and-
Brooklyn.
And again,
We're gonna go
nobody's
to the other side of the island.
nobody's even designed a study yet that would get at, reaching the people who come here and finding out what their sentiment on the matter is. So, so we're really not even at the launch and for having these discussions.
Here's some more. They had a lot of balls to get in front of a group and say they were gonna lose $800 million over. 30 years.
They didn't say that.
We,
Oh.
Towns, the towns,
The town's attorney said, that.
town's
And
attorneys
town attorney did that research?
the town's attorney did the calculation.
did the
Town's attorney
calculation,
who's
again.
Trying to negotiate with them.
Okay.
So this is a negotiation.
I understand, but you would think that there would be some background to that research. Is there some
There
background?
it was,
He used the New
what,
Jersey study.
well, the New Jersey study that said 85% of people would continue to return to the Jersey Shore if the certain wind farm was built. So the counter of that is 15% of people would not come. So what's 15% of the tourism economy over 30 years on Nantucket? And that's where you got $800 and something million.
Gotcha.
So we're somewhere between a $50,000 survey for historic buildings and $800 million, and there'll be some payment presumably in between those numbers.
But can I ask a couple more questions
Sure.
for your future meetings?
Yeah, please arm me. I don't know what I'm doing there
One
yet,
is
so.
what's going on in all these other places where I think what they said last night in New Jersey, all the mayors in New Jersey have gotten together and they are lobbying the governor to stop these wind farms. Like, why are they doing that? What do they know that we don't know? And also, is our payment going to decrease the further out they go? So, okay, we got paid by Vineyard Wind. Well, you're not gonna be able to see more of them further away. They're gonna lose interest in paying us. So our payment needs to be pretty strong with the first 2 people in the door, if that is what the town wants to do, is to get paid.
Yeah, I suppose the town does want to get paid, and there, if there is a meaningful and real impact on our tourism economy, then there ought to be some impact payment. I'd like to see the study that says that there will be. I mean, these things that they had visual representations of what you'd be able to see 23 miles from the South Shore of Nantucket. It's not, in my opinion, a significant visual impact. It's not something that I can imagine somebody saying, I'm not coming to Nantucket because you have this thing almost the distance from us to the Cape. I mean, it's not, in my opinion, that's not real, but somebody ought to study the matter.
And the sound situation also, which is.
I think that there's a couple context things, one of which is this is one of 8 wind farms. There's 1,600 windmills and 30 years of construction. So this is just one.
Yeah.
Right? And then the second thing is that the windmills, the Empire State Building is 1,250 feet. These windmills are going to be 1,066 feet.
It's amazing.
Well, that's the limit under their
Right.
application, but currently
A lot of
there
it's
are
gonna
no
be underwater.
turbines that are that tall.
No.
The first turbines that will be built first, which will be the nearest
To us. Yes,
are gonna be 600 feet tall.
that's correct.
So as you get further from Nantucket and in the future, if technology progresses, so that they don't have to restart the permitting process, they've asked to be able to go to a maximum
Right.
of that number. So those, anyway, 600 feet compared to the Empire State Building is
Half.
half.
But they don't count the space that what's underground under the
No.
water?
No.
So 600 feet above the water.
Correct.
Wow.
Yeah.
Can you report back, how can we find out about the agreement we have with Vineyard Wind? Is that on?
I don't know that that's public knowledge, so I'm not sure. I'd have to check.
So the town potentially made an agreement with this company and it's not public?
I don't know, Jill.
Oh,
That's what I don't know means.
Okay, no, I'm just surprised. We usually have.
Well, there's certain things I believe that the
maybe-
select board is able to do in
I mean, maybe
executive
it wasn't
session.
signed or something.
There's
I don't
certain
know.
things that the select board's able to do in executive session, is my understanding, that never becomes part of public record, but I don't know if this is one of those things. Libby, is the Vineyard Wind agreement public knowledge?
I honestly don't recall right off the top of my head, but I'll find out and let you know.
Okay, thanks.
Well, I'm just wondering, because then it's a baseline for the other
Mhm.
applications.
Yeah.
That's why I'm
Yeah.
curious about it.
So if you want to see this discussion, you can go watch the select board meeting from last night, and there's something I just learned last night that's very cool. Now they put chapter things in the description. So at the television
Oh,
station. So
cool.
if you go into the description, you have to click on description, it opens up, gives you every item on the agenda, you click on that, it takes you right to that
Cool.
bookmark.
So you don't
On
have to-
NCTV or on the YouTube channel?
On the YouTube channel, so you can
Excellent.
skip
I
the
agree.
conversation
Go
about,
watch this.
you can skip the conversation about the lot clearing, the Surfside.
Yes,
I encourage you to skip that and go directly to the window.
I second Chris's suggestion.
On both parts?
No,
Okay.
I mean,
Oh, I
I,
didn't realize
Yes, on
the,
both
the chapter thing is handy, because I used
Yeah,
to
that
watch
was
them
cool.
all.
Yeah.
Does that work for all committees or just for
I think they're
the
just,
select
it's a
board?
manual process. at the
Okay.
station.
well,
Somebody's
it
gotta
was a
sit there
very
and do it
long
time.
meeting. It was a very long meeting.
Well, the wind part took up a lot.
Okay. Any other committee reports?
It's worth watching.
I'm debating whether or not I should talk about the CRC thing.
Mm-mm.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
You
you.
want to know now?
Late applicants.
Thank you, Denise.
No, because Dorothy has to do it through the proper channels.
got it.
So we shouldn't preview it in a public meeting.
Okay.
Until Dorothy does what she needs to do. Is my
Okay.
observation.
Great, I'm happy to follow that directive.
It'll be, I'm sure it'll be known soon enough. So, any other? No? Okay, may I have any other business? No other business. It was all except.
Motion to adjourn.
And may I have a motion to adjourn, please?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you, Stephen.
Aye.
Joanna.
Aye.
Jill.
Aye.
Chris.
Aye.
Joe.
Aye.
Peter.
Aye.
Jeremy.
Hi.
Thank you, everyone. See you on Monday.